Welcome to the Five podcast here on the Five. We're sitting down 5 questions with John Doss. He's joining us right now. John, how you doing?
Very well. Very well. Good. As always. Great to be on Five.
Great. Thanks, John. First question we've got for you, talking about the Pac-12. Pac-12 Commissioner Larry Scott came out about a week ago now, said that he's laser focused, of all things, on getting the Pac-12 more national exposure. Where does he need to start?
You cannot be more focused than laser focused, I think, by definition. I don't think that it's anything that Larry Scott can do on his own. I think that it is much bigger than revenue. I think it's much bigger than economy. I think it's, actually, I guess it's less. I think it's more basic than that.
But doesn't it start with having better teams, or at least scheduling better teams that you're playing against?
Exactly. At this point, it's a performance thing for the Pac-12. What we're going to call the 12 Pac, I think, is what I'm going to try to get it called nationwide. Actually, I think that would pick up more steam too, if we started calling it a 12 Pac. Then I think that's something the SEC fans could really respect. It's a shot to the SEC fans. I feel dirty about that. But yeah, it's all a respect thing. You know, the Pac-12 has USC. We're fortunate enough to have Oregon in the national championship again this year, or for the first time this year. It all comes down to winning, and I think for the Pac-12, it's more about what they're doing in the non-conference. And what I like about the Pac-12, the new arrangement, is it's not going to tie teams down to the traditional round robin that the Pac-10 has been subject to. Because a lot of people that say that the Pac-10 is weak because X amount of teams have X amount of losses, they're not taking into account that perhaps there's a ton of parity in the Pac-10, and they're beating each other up and taking wins away from each other. And at the end, that ultimately results in a bunch of 7 or 6 win teams. Now that they're not going to be tied down to that round-robin type of thing, it's going to allow them to be more creative in the non-conference. And you see this year, you've got Oregon State, for example, has got BYU and Wisconsin as non-conference games. Colorado's got Ohio State this year. Cal, I know, over the next 5 years, has home and homes with Ohio State and Texas. But what they can't afford to do is have top-tier teams that aren't named USC schedule just awful opponents. I know Cal's got Presbyterian in the third game of the season this year. Cal's not Florida. It's not to the point where Cal can schedule those teams and just get away with victories. Florida every year is going to schedule the Citadel. I think this year they've got Furman in December, which is a little ridiculous. Of course, they're going to get FAU. The top-tier teams in the Pac-12 are going to have to schedule respectfully. They're going to have to go after a good competition. They're going to have to take care of business, or else they're not going to get that respect.
Now, in football, the addition of the Pac-12 conference championship, does that help or hurt the Pac-12 on a national scale?
I don't know that there's any scenario that it necessarily hurts the Pac-12. Economically, it's phenomenal. It's one big game that's going to be nationally televised, that it's going to get good viewers, no doubt, and it's going to make the conference some money. I think it's also an opportunity for the country to see the Pac-12's top teams one more time, or if they haven't seen them all year, which is, pretty likely in the South or the East, the people that don't really pay attention to football anywhere left of Utah, which Utah's in now, so that's great. But, yeah, I think it's going to lead to more exposure. It's going to be an opportunity for another win for a team. And we could see scenarios within the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. We've had situations in the Pac-12 where the Pac-12 champ USC would be undefeated. They go to the national championship game, vacate the spot in the Rose Bowl, and we've seen that that's been taken away from the Pac-10. If it was some other conference that's had those conference championship games, that other team in that conference championship would have an opportunity to go into that vacated spot, which has been taken away from other Pac-10 schools as of late.
Now, at the end of next season, the contracts with Fox Sports, ABC, ESPN, they're done. Where do you think they go from there?
I don't see many ways that he can go.
You know, the Pac-10, they were ranked 5th in total revenue out of the big conference, Big East, Big 10, Big 12. You've got that Texas-only network, the SEC, all these places. They were ranked 5th in the country. Is there any chance that they're thinking about launching the Pac-12 network?
I think it would have to be. Out there on the West Coast, really, you've got one scenario right now, and that's Fox Sports. You've got Fox Sports Northwest, Fox Sports Bay Area, Fox Sports LA. But other than that, I don't see any other option other than opening up a Pac-12 network, which could be great, because now you're talking about getting exposure for every game, not just the USC versus Oregon that's going to be on game day maybe on ESPN, and not just the Cal USC game or the Oregon State USC game once a year. You're going to get every game covered, and it's going to give the option for people on the East Coast and in the South and the Midwest to look at those games. Whether or not they look at them is going to be determined on what we talked about earlier and whether or not the Pac-12 teams are performing the way they should. But at least now they would have an option with a Pac-12 network.
Great. Thanks for stopping by, John. Appreciate it. And that's the end of the
no
wonderful
problem.
podcast here on The Five. Stick around. Come back. There's going to be more.